Hello and welcome back to Midwest Running. So today the shoe we're going to be talking about is the ASICS Metaspeed Edge Tokyo. This is a shoe that I ran the Chicago Marathon in. Currently, I've been running it now for about a little over a month, give or take. Currently has about 66 miles in it, and that includes marathon distance as well as two 20-mile runs in the lead up to it, including like a 20-mile race that I did in September as a kind of a nice dress rehearsal. Little bit about the shoe. ASICS on their website lists it as being about 6 ounces or 170 grams in their US men's size 9 spec shoe. Now, interestingly enough, this is a 10 and a half, and I did weigh it, and you can see here it's got some stuff built up on it here, so maybe some material worn down a little bit. But regardless, it came in at 175 grams. And that's actually kind of consistent. I've been seeing a lot of measurements from other people saying the same thing, that it's coming in lighter than the spec sheet. So that's something that's worth noting. And I think that it gives us a little extra bonus with this shoe. So again, like I said, 175 grams in my US men's size 10 and a half. Could be a little bit added to it. Could be a little bit subtracted just from wear and race day and everything. So anyway, the stack, it's 39.5 millimeters in the heel and 34.5 millimeters in the forefoot, giving a 5 millimeter drop. In this shoe here, the construction here, you got this upper, which is their Motion Wrap 3 upper. And it's got a little bit of padding in the heel here with a relatively rigid heel counter considering for a race shoe here. Tongue is not gusseted and it's very thin, but all things equal, it's a very good upper, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Midsole is actually where kind of the fun begins. So you have two different foams as well as a carbon plate. So the top foam here is the FF Leap, which is the new foam that ASICS put out this year. This one is, I believe, an ATPU foam. It's a lot more resilient. It has a lot more compression and expansion to it. It feels very poppy. It feels very good, nice and refreshing to have it under your foot, to be quite honest. And then you have this carbon plate, which starts a little bit high in the back here. As you can see, kind of scoops down nice and low here. You can see it nicely on the medial side as well. High plate kind of comes down and follows that curvature very nicely. And then the bottom layer of foam here is actually the FF Turbo Plus, which was the same foam from last year's Metaspeed series, which, again, a very resilient foam, a very durable foam. All things together, you add the ASICS grip rubber on the bottom here, which is a decent amount of coverage for a race day shoe. And really, you're set up with a fantastic thing to be using on race day. Now, a little bit of background for those I'm sure are completely familiar, but ASICS in the last few years has been doing kind of a dual shoe for their Metaspeed top end series. Now this year they did a third, which I'm not going to talk about, but the other shoe in the lineup here is the Metaspeed Sky Tokyo. So both shoes at quick glance look very, very similar. You can see, caveat being that the my Metaspeed Edge Tokyo is a lot dirtier than my Sky is currently. But a couple notable differences between the two is that they flip where the foams are. So the Sky has the FF Leap on the bottom with the FF Turbo Plus on the top, and a much thinner layer of that in general, much more of the FF Leap. And then the plate itself kind of stays more toward the top. And we'll talk about that a little bit as this review goes on. So what is this shoe really for? Well, it's a race day shoe. That's just above and beyond what it does. It has a really, really, really huge energy return. I'm not gonna lie. When you start going in it, you're guaranteed you're gonna start putting extra pace in without any increased effort on your end. The big thing that sets this one apart is what ASICS has done traditionally is they've set up their Sky and their edge to favor different styles of runner. So they've referred to cadence and stride runners. So the cadence runners are typically the Edge series, whereas the stride runners are typically the Sky series. Now, I don't know if I'm a stride runner or a cadence runner. Like I spent forever trying to figure that out. And frankly, what it comes down to is, I think an easier way to think about it is, what happens? Like, what do you like? What kind of experience do you like, and how do you like your shoes to feel? So with this one here, the Edge, you have a really good roll forward, and having the plate very low, it puts it right at the ground to really help give you a much more pronounced toe off and help move you through your stride faster and move you through your cadence faster, make it a little bit less confusing here. But it helps you get your feet moving a little bit faster with a decent amount of power and energy return. Whereas with the Sky, what they're trying to do, and I'll get into it when I do more of the review on this shoe, by having the plate a little bit higher up with the softer foam on bottom, it really favors you if you're somebody who is more of a forward midfoot to forefoot striker, and it compresses down and pops you forward. So where the Sky, I think in the name, like Sky kind of gives you more air if you're more of a stride runner, it gives you the extra length to your stride, whereas the Edge kind of keeps you closer to the ground, so to speak, and just moving forward a little bit quicker with your legs. That's probably the best way I can describe it, to be honest. So does it actually work? Yes, it does. And in fact, I can say that comparatively from the Metaspeed Edge Paris from last year, it is a significant improvement of a shoe just across the board. And that's not to say that the Edge Paris was bad. This is just light years ahead of where that one was. Now, yes, it is a race day shoe, but what happens on those days when you're feeling a little bit sore? You go out there, your race isn't going quite the way you wanted to. How does it feel? Actually, not too bad, even at slightly easier paces. It is definitely a little bit more unstable, just given the nature of the shoe being a race day shoe. But it really isn't untenable. You can control it. It just you'll know that you're in a race day shoe just at the end of the day. How would I say the sizing is? The sizing is true to size in a men's size 10.5 for me. I felt that it had really good lockdown, with the caveat being the tongue being non-gusseted. Just make sure that when you are putting it on, that you're just giving that extra little bit of time to kind of like loosen everything up extra and get that tongue laying flat on either side of your foot. Once you cinch it all down, it wraps really well. I did not feel any major heel slip issues. I did not have any significant hot spots. Other than when I first got the shoe, when my first 20-mile run in it, I did have to actually take them off and kind of retie them. I was having some discomfort under the ball of my foot. Now, I have some theories about why that was, because just redoing the shoe didn't fix it. But I have, again, as I said, I have some ideas of why that was the case. So I'm not going to, I'll kind of get into that in a minute here. The one thing this shoe has going for it, bar none, is the breathability, though. This shoe is amazingly breathable on really, really hot, sticky days that I have had the opportunity to run in. Just on my 3 runs in it, they've all been hot days. My feet have felt very good. I've not had any major buildup of any sweat, discomfort, heat. It's done a very good job. Even when it was humid, you're going to have some moisture that doesn't evaporate away just due to humidity, but it felt like it was able to manage it quite well. So that is an extra prop to it. Now, that being said, in cooler temps, if you're not somebody who's comfortable with that, maybe a thicker sock might not be a bad idea for you. The shoe itself, I would say, is really good for definitely up in the elite category for people who are really pushing those paces really fast. If you're somebody who prefers more of that roll through as opposed to the pop, this is a great shoe for you. Even down into kind of the average runner. The people who are pushing maybe over 4.5 hours, 5 hour marathon, stuff like that, it might not be the best shoe for them, just given, some of the instability with it at higher paces. But, when we talk about kind of super shoes, these are designed to be more tip of the spear as it is. But I think these ones do a good job of putting you in a comfortable position, even as more of a quote unquote average, like a sub 4 hour marathoner. I think you're going to be comfortable with this shoe. I will say that in comparison to its counterpart, the Sky, it is significantly more forgiving feeling. The Sky is an absolute tip of the spear weapon, whereas this one here has a little bit of wiggle to it. So the Sky, if you are not on the front of your foot constantly with a great form, it's going to build up and you're going to feel it pretty quickly. So what are the things I really like about it? So one, this FF Leap foam is just amazing. I will say just the overall durability of the shoe thus far. Again, it shows just because the white and, a marathon course and everything, it shows it's, been used here, but overall it's holding up quite well at this point, with 66 miles in it. Again, being a race day shoe, I'm not expecting, 500, 600 miles out of something. I'll probably put another, I'll probably put maybe another half or two into this. I may, I don't, I may do another, I would do either another marathon or just two halves in it before I put it down more toward like some of my tempo running and move into like another pair of them or something else. But even at that, when you approach 100 miles, they'll probably still feel pretty good. I think, reasonably speaking, with the ASICS grip rubber and then the foam that so far has been quite durable. And when I compare it to last year, I know the FF Turbo Plus is a rather durable, sustainable foam. So I think you'll comfortably get 200, 250 miles out of this easily without really any question on my end. Another thing I really like is that it does have a more pronounced forward propulsive attitude to it compared to last year. I'm not sure if it's just a nature of the foam itself, because when I compare the two from the two shoes overall, this is the Edge Paris from last year, and this is this year's Edge Tokyo. You can see overall it's not too much different of a rocker. I think the rocker is a little bit further back on the Edge Tokyo. I'd have to, measure it out. Plus that shoe is actually a half size up just due to some fit issues I was having when I was trying them. So, my measurements may not be accurate 1-to-1 on that. But very clear, like when I tried the Paris series, the Sky and the Edge, it was kind of hard for me to really differentiate. I ended up liking the Sky a bit more. I think just had that extra little bit of pop to it. Whereas the Edge was, again, just a little bit more rolling. But this one does it a lot better. It's very clear when I put this one on versus when I put the Sky on, which shoe I'm wearing and how, what my experience is going to be like. And then, again, I can't speak highly enough of the overall comfort and breathability of it. Just, it's been fantastic. And a nice little feature I noticed, really more noted after I ran Chicago, and it was still a little bit, moist in there and stuff like that. The insole itself is actually kind of perforated. It has a lot of little extra kind of ventilation kind of channels in there, which also I think helps with just how the shoe feels and how the shoe breathes, as well as it does help with that weight reduction too. So it's kind of a nice little touch that I noticed later that I'm grateful for and thankful for. Now there are a couple things that I don't like about it. I will say it is a bit narrow in the toe box. Asterisk being it is a race day shoe, so you expect it to be a race day fit. It's going to be tight. It's going to wrap your foot. If you do have a wider foot, you might want to try going up a half size. That might help. It's really this would be a shoe that I would recommend like any other kind of race shoe. If you're interested in it, you do have a wider foot or just a little bit more abnormal, quote unquote abnormal, foot needs, you're probably going to be better off trying them on before ordering them. Um, so if you have a shop near you that has them in stock, it might be worth checking out. And the other thing, and this is because I have to find something to complain about. Again, the non-gusseted tongue, but again, it is all about that weight savings. Those couple extra grams, do they really make a difference at the end of the day? Probably not. But they get to say that they have a shoe that is, again, on the paper, 170 grams. In reality, when I was doing some research and looking around, the measurement that Run Repeat had on theirs was like 156 grams. So significantly better than what ASICS was advertising, which is a nice change compared to some of the other things. So again, is it a con? Yeah, it'd be nice to have that gusseted tongue, give you a little more, a little bit more comfortable wrap around the foot, but that's a minor little complaint here. All things considered, if I were to give it a rating, I would probably call it a 9 out of 10. And the one point off really is the you really need to know what you're looking for from ASICS. If you know the kind of experience and the kind of runner you tend to be, it'll make it easier. But now that there's also the Metaspeed Ray in the series, which is kind of like an even lighter, more advanced version of the Sky from everything I've been seeing and hearing, it does get a little bit more confusing, I think, to know exactly what it is you're looking for. So your best bet is hopefully have a shop near you that has one or both of them in stock so you can try it and see what it is. And then the other thing that kind of held it back was, like I mentioned before, when I first wore it on my first 20-mile run on it, like straight out of the box, going 20 miles in it. First of all, that speaks of, highly of the shoe. It was comfortable for that. Other than, I would say, about between like miles 3 and 7, so about 4 miles or so, I was feeling a little bit of discomfort in the ball of my foot. And I don't know for sure, but I wonder if it is just a small break-in section, letting the two foams, because I know the FF Turbo I felt last year needed a little bit more of a break-in. It's a little bit firmer, whereas the Leap is a little bit softer. So was it just kind of coming up against that extra firmness there before everything was starting to work? That was kind of my experience with it, because it was both feet that were feeling it. It wasn't just one foot. And then I haven't had that return since. So I wonder if it was just a little bit of a break-in period for the shoe itself. And then would I recommend this to people? Yeah, I would recommend it. I really think this is a great race day option when you consider the fact that at its price point of $270, that's, quite a considerable amount to be spending on a shoe. Absolutely. But in terms of kind of performance and weight and everything, this punches well above into even kind of that Adidas Pro Evo territory without having the Pro Evo price. And also you get the opportunity to kind of tune your experience to what you're looking for. So those would be kind of my thoughts on that. I'm interested in your thoughts. If you have any questions, if you've had an experience with this one or any of the other Metaspeed models, please put your comments below. Also consider liking and subscribing and help this channel grow a little bit. Thank you very much. Enjoy your next runs.